Start a new video. Hello folks on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's more of this multiplayer session. I'll pause. So, a lot of this game comes down to role playing, comes down to immersion, right? What type of world would you want to live in? And a world that's dominated by a neo-British Empire kind of thing, or even just Britain, doesn't sound a heck of a lot better than our own. The British never letting go of their empire, they would probably be even worse than, in our own world, how the United States is going to be with dominating the third world and exploiting a lot of, Africa and Asia, right? You probably don't know much about that yourself. You haven't studied history or anything, but do you enjoy studying history? Is that something that you do in your free time? I guess I should have asked that.
History? No. Never do.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to. I'll pause it. Just got an event. I was looking to see what it said. There's a lot of history behind it to see how the world got to be what it is now, and also understand. So there's a lot of things like the very rich bastards who essentially run the country would want you to forget about the past and make the current world seem like it's natural and it's always been the way it is. And if you don't know the past, you won't know the present because you won't understand things that are being obfuscated or lied about. So, U.S. corporations dominating a lot of West Africa, that's not natural. That came from the French and the British colonizing the area, seizing control of all the natural resources, giving it to government monopolies. In the case of literal British crown corporations, but the French were also a monarchy that set up monopolies as well.
My volunteers just arrived.
Oh, okay, I'll let you play and I'll just give a little bit of this miniature history lesson while you do that. But, so the French and British both had, corporations which were set up with royal patronage by the British and French crowns in their colonies in Africa. And I mean, the French ones weren't just then. There was also periods of the Republic in the 1800s being involved. But nonetheless, these corporations were set up with government sponsorship to run the exploitation of natural resources that were stolen from the natives at gunpoint. Literally, soldiers came in, they conquered the countries. They said everything belongs to us that we want to take, basically, and they took over, or they forced very exploitive contracts, and they basically took control of the mines and stuff in West Africa, all the valuable ones that had high concentrations of ores and various other natural resources spices and rubber, that kind of thing. There are some spices you can grow in West Africa. It's not like India where that's an ideal climate, but there are some. I mean, there's some you can grow in the Caribbean too. Grenada is known as the nutmeg capital of the world, for instance, and the U.S. invaded Grenada in the 80s because they tried to resist U.S. imperialism, and in particular, they tried to raise the minimum wage in the country. And for trying to raise the minimum wage, they invaded the country. They also misconstrued comments, tried to make it out there's a U.S. medical school in Grenada, like they were somehow in danger. And actually, the medical school staff begged the U.S. not to invade the country and said they were perfectly happy with the situation. In fact, it was reducing poverty in the country because your average medical student cares deeply about the poor. At least back then they did, and not so much about imperialism. Um, but, anyways, I'm getting beyond the point, drawing the parallels. Granada. The point is resources were stolen, and then when the British Empire fell apart after World War II, the United States took over that empire from the British, the parts that were British, and the French tried to keep running their empire, but that increasingly did not work. That led to the Vietnam War, which started after World War II in very loose form. 48, there was already resistance and armed rebellion in the beginnings of it. and because the French Empire was overstretched, it was really still an empire, even though they called themselves a democracy. And so the U.S. eventually moved in and took over some of the control, though France still dominates much of West Africa today. Areas like Burkina Faso, um, which actually tried to resist, had a kind of socialist election thing after a coup. And of course, the French say the election wasn't legitimate, and then they assassinated the leader of the country. And now that's relevant to today's world because there's the neo-Sankarists in Burkina Faso who have again came and kicked the foreign corporations out and nationalized stuff, or threatening to do so. And that is leading to currently the U.S. trying to get Nigeria to invade. So it's not a great world we live in. It's not the worst world. It's certainly better than like the Nazis taking over, but better worlds could have been possible, right? Are you listening, Core? Or did you get really into what you were doing? And can you hear me, Core?
Mhm.
So, part of the idea here is creating a world that'd be more livable. It's not just, okay, maybe it's a map painting game, but also there's a reason I'm choosing as the United States to go communist, and that's partly because communism has not historically been big on imperialism. The exception being the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. Some people might call that kind of semi-imperialism, although it doesn't have a lot of the markers of normal imperialism. But at the same time, they worked to end imperialism throughout Africa and Asia and most of the rest of the world. But that was kind of the worst example of that. Generally speaking, socialists, especially the more principled types of movements that rarely came into power historically, which I would assume is the Democratic Socialists to take over the U.S. in this alt history, literally a Democratic Socialist faction, they would not be in favor of imperialism. They'd be about uplifting people in the third world and giving them control over their own affairs, not trying to dominate them, giving them foreign aid, but not trying to use that as a way to subtly take over a country, which is what happens today, where countries are intentionally made dependent on foreign aid in such a way they can't survive without it, especially by making sure their military industries are dependent on U.S. weapon imports and not allowing them to build their own weapons industries up so that they don't have to rely on those imports, and cutting off that aid if the governments do anything that we don't like. So, whereas, say, historically, the Soviet Union helped countries like Vietnam, Congo when it was communist, Burkina Faso when it went that way, Cuba to build their own arms industries, not be relying on Soviet imports. And that was how Cuba, for instance, was able to start increasingly distancing itself from the Soviet Union because they didn't have to rely on the Soviets for arms. And because they distanced themselves, they did not collapse and the Soviet Union collapsed. Oh, by the way, Corey, you have focuses to invade Cuba and turn them like communists, basically, that either you can integrate them into your country or, puppet them or just force ideology. If you force ideology, they'll likely join our faction. Yeah. Your faction actually disappeared during your Civil War. I just noticed a second ago.
Yeah, that's because I'm communist now. I think that was a non-aligned faction.
Well, Civil Wars often disband your faction, but you could, you have the rule. I think you're able to create factions now. Yep, sets the rule, can create factions. So yeah, you would need another country that's communist to do it with, which there are none of anywhere in the Americas. Shoot, and other ones will probably be too far away, and they're already in a faction. Do you still have your Bulgarian alliance decisions, or do you have have to be in a faction probably for that.
What?
Do you have your Bolivarian Alliance decisions?
Nope.
Hmm. Here's something you could do, and that would probably bring him back. See if Mongolia will create a faction with you. I'm not kidding, Mongolia, because they won't join the Soviet faction. They have bad relations with them after the whole civil war there. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
What?
No, they still won't.
How close are they in terms of modifiers? If you hover over it, it should give you like a set of values telling you how far they are.
Not,
What?
not close at all.
Is it like negative 1,000 to 0 or something?
-50.
Negative 50 to what? What's the positive factor for you?
13.
Oh, so you only have to increase it by 37. You can do 10 just by improving diplomatic relations, and if you I'm trying to remember if create faction benefits from diplomatic pressure missions. If it does, you may be able to do it with a diplomatic pressure spy mission. If as world tension gets higher, they may also. But yeah, they're kind of far away. Shoot, I'll have to think about this. If you're able to create a faction, are you still listed as a major country, or did your civil war eliminate that too? Faction leaders are always considered majors. Yeah, looks like your civil war made you no longer a major. I guess you're not listed as a major country anymore. Maybe it's
Yeah.
I mean, normally a country never demotes from being a major, so it couldn't have just been that you weren't a faction leader anymore. Hmm. Well, are there any countries in Latin America can be flipped communist by peaceful means? Let's see. Venezuela looks the most promising. I've looked at all the countries, and I think in Venezuela has the highest communist support. They have 16.13% communist support right now in Venezuela.
Venezuela's already in the Axis.
Yeah, but they're not going to remain. Well, shoot, they'll probably get forced ideology though. Actually, so they who knows what they'll be after the war. Cuba then is the next most, unless it's one of these Central American countries, but those are. Oh, Nicaragua. Yeah, Nicaragua is 10%, and they're non-aligned, which makes it easier to flip them. Um, However, they only one state, so you can't start a civil war there to flip them in a reasonable period of time. No, it may be what I was going to suggest with Venezuela, because they're more than one state, is not, in their fascist same ways, they don't have elections, is to do a spy operation to boost communist support and then propaganda to destabilize them. And when their stability is below 35%, we can fire off a coup in Venezuela, which will, yeah, they have so much of their stability is due to ruling party popularity. That's doable. Coup in Venezuela will create a civil war, and the communist side will not be part of the Axis, right?
No,
Well, no,
they'll leave the faction.
No, well, I mean Venezuela, the fascist side. Well, I'm not, that was more of a rhetorical question. I'm saying, um, so I actually kind of like doing this. Sometimes you can weaken a country that you're at war with by starting a coup towards your ideology in that country. Venezuela is a perfect candidate for this in a lot of ways. They're nearby at hand. Um, they have this blockade thing, which I'm not sure if the other side can be blockaded if a civil war is fired there. It might be that they lose that national spirit and can't be blockaded anymore, which would be good if they're in our faction. And even if they don't, though they do have the nationalism spirit, but that expires in like 9-ish months. So
Yeah.
yeah, even if it doesn't work, just destabilizing them will make the Axis a little bit weaker. Um, Maybe worth it. Uh, if this war goes on for a real long time, or you get a spy candidate who's good at propaganda. Oh, geez, the Czechs are in spitting distance of Berlin now. Never mind if this goes on for a long time. It won't. Portugal is sitting at 36% communism supporting rising. They tried to take the focus path to join the Spanish Civil War, but the Spanish Civil War was over before they could join. So, um, interesting. They'll end up joining the Comintern eventually, or rather the Fourth International. Oh, Spain is taking the subvert Soviet control path, where they're going to try and rebel against the Soviets. They took their aid gladly during the war, but then they do a war of independence. Probably knowing the eye before they do all their recovery focuses that the Soviet Union helps them with. Uh, okay, so Spain is very definitely not going to be communist anymore. Uh, Portugal is flipping on their own. Are you ready to pause? I was just waiting for you, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So looking around what countries are doing. Hmm. How many free civilian factories do you have now?
How many free?
Like, not used for consumer goods, available for construction.
Um, None. I
None.
think I'm using all of them. Yeah, I'm using all of them.
No, I didn't mean are you using them. I meant how many are in your construction lines. Sorry, I forget that terminology may not be.
Oh, none yet. I'm building infrastructure right now.
Um, how many factories are working on the infrastructure is what I'm saying.
Oh, how many?
Yes.
15.
Okay, so you got a full line. May be good to start thinking soon-ish about founding an intelligence agency. Where are you building infrastructure, by the way? Coahuila or
Mexico City.
oh, you filled up Coahuila with
Mex
factories.
well, Mexico City, Jalisco, Oaxaca, and Guerrero. Mainly where all my resources are being made at. That's where I'm putting infrastructure.
Uh, did you fill up the places that already have 5 infrastructure with factories yet?
Yeah.
Hmm. T Well, I was gonna say the resources don't do any good unless you have enough factories to use them, really. So, if you've built, yeah, I guess, if you built a level of infrastructure in Tamaulipas, or maybe you finish in Mexico City, but then you really need more factories. But I was gonna say a good time to start an intelligence agency is often when you get up to 17 factories available, because that'll just like reduce you to like 12 for a construction line, which is still a decent number. Um, but yeah, you're not benefiting yourself by just building infrastructure in resource states. It's not like you have any resource shortages that are very significant. The infrastructure is to get you a discount on building factories in the states where the infrastructure is. Because, like, if you have level 5 infrastructure, you get twice the construction speed as a state that has, well, no infrastructure theoretically, which everywhere is at least one level. Um, so level 1 is 1.2, level 2 is 1.4, 3 is 1.6, 4 is 1.8, and 5 is 2 times the base construction output.
Yeah.
So you build infrastructure and then you build factories where you build infrastructure. You don't just move on to more infrastructure elsewhere usually. Um, and you need the sieve factories to build mill, and you need the mill factories to make equipment, and you also need dockyards to make ships. And you need civ factories to build your intelligence agency critically, which is what I was, anyways, thinking about. So you can like bump things around the queue, but I would definitely move infrastructure in well, how close is the fourth level of infrastructure? So next infrastructure Mexico City to being finished.
Uh, April 2nd.
Oh, so it's pretty close. Well, then I would definitely queue up a bunch of factories in Mexico City after that infrastructure, after you get up to level 5. The two infrastructures are done.
Yeah.
Alright, well, anyways, pause now, I guess. That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Why do I have another available dockyard? When did I just finish? Oh, there we go. I'm good. Still in lobbying. Alright, enough of that. 'Tis time. Why can't I fire our own powder? Something's weird with my ability to replace political advisors. What the heck? Maybe because I have no political power. Alright, that shouldn't be the case though. Shouldn't work like that. Alright, well, never mind that. Trying to start limited interventionism.
Oh, I just realized the
What?
regular Mexico before I killed them. They was trying to build up destroyers from what it looks like. So now I have 3 destroyers.
Yeah.
I have 5 destroyers. Well, they made 5 destroyers, and I gained those destroyers. Which now, stick them in there. Got done too. Oh.
Oh. You've gotta be kidding me. Right after I figured I'd spend some Navy experience because it may sound weird that I'm complaining about that, but the other side in Civil War gets any of your doctrines, but they don't get your experience, so I just gave them a trait. Following the outbreak of the hostilities between the United States and the Confederacy of American States, a number state legislatures passed motions of non-intervention.
Yeah.
Hold on. So I'm just, I mean, I'm sorry you saw what happened to my map, but my Civil War just started.
Oh, yeah.
aligned states of America, or unaligned states of America. They get their own industrial focus, is among other things. They have a university rector and a reluctant interventionist for and the Confederacy right now it just looks like it's Texas, but hold on. Not technically at war just yet. I don't know if accepting the decision makes it speed up.
You're in 2 civil wars.
What?
You're in 2 civil wars. You're against the
No,
Confederates
I'm not.
and
The
aligned.
unaligned states of America is a neutral bloc. These are states that aren't picking sides. They're not against me. They're just not with me.
Oh, I see, I see.
Right now, it's just Texas and the Confederacy, but other states should join them. Suddenly, I'm short of steel? That doesn't make sense. There wasn't that much steel in Texas. Oh, non-aligned states had a lot of steel. Shoot. I guess I'll be buying steel from them. Although, maybe this is a good time to step down my production of, well, doesn't look like even start on this. Rochester. start making some subs. There's gonna be a lot of stuff to do here.
Yeah.
Try and reduce my steel production requirements. By switching from
Yeah.
production of surface ships to subs for now. Hmm.
Can we unpause?
No, not yet. Hold on. I've got a ton of stuff to set up because that was just reworking my naval production to reduce steel consumption so that I didn't have to buy quite so much. Already lost factories as well. Can't recall my divisions right away, but let's see. My navy's here, here, and here. Recall the Asiatic fleet at this point before they get stuck all the way in the Philippines or put convoys at risk. Let's increment this. Hold on, save. I think I'm gonna get a bunch more events with more states succeeding. Also, checking if I yet lost MacArthur. Not yet. It's because the war isn't technically started yet. Mere hours after the first state severed ties with the United States, others followed suit with almost identical sun declarations. Hopes of peaceful separation were quickly dashed. Several demonstrations in the Fed states turned blood in favor of continued membership in the United States turned bloody. A number of federal officers were assaulted. A few state supporters of FDR, or just people accused of insufficient zeal for independence, were lynched. The Confederate guy promised presidential pardons to those who lynched people. The Confederacy is lynching people who held demonstrations in favor of continued statehood. Yeah, evil pricks. They shouldn't have any divisions since everyone was volunteers in Europe, but I guess they get a few militia, which that's bad because I got nothing myself. Alright, Japan wants to send me 6 divisions. Yes, please. Italy wants to send me 7. You must understand them. Soviets want to send me 8. The French want to lend-lease me stuff. Cool. All extremely appreciated.
Also, by the way, I can get a lot of new stuff now that for my templates, now that I have my recon and everything up, I can get signal companies, field hospitals, motorized recon company, cavalry recon detachment,
I mean,
engineer companies, armored recon companies, signal companies.
it's generally not worthwhile to research the support companies unless you're going to use them right away, or if you're growing an MIO that is based on the equipment. Like I've researched some just to grow Ford Motor Company, but a lot of those aren't super useful until higher tech or when you have more industry than you have now. I didn't want to. Signal companies in particular are much more of a high tech thing. I didn't realize you were doing those. I didn't want to intrude too much with. All right. Well, let's see. It looks like, although it could just be slow in updating, most of the army remain loyal to me, but they're all in Europe. 555. Geez, I think about 80% of the army remained loyal. It's mostly just a matter of militias on the other side. Of course, they'll probably train new divisions.
What about the recon companies? Are they any good?
Recon is usually very good, especially although Rangers, which you can get from the Mountaineer Focus tree, are better, but that will come at the expense of. For you have to choose between Mountaineers and Marines, I'm pretty sure. Well, I'm not sure if you ever. Well, no, you might. When you become a major, I think, again, you might get a second branch specialization. Those are the two you want. Airborne aren't going to be a ton of use for you because the industry to do paratroopers is just way beyond you in a reasonable time frame. Um, so recon can be useful for sure in the intern, and maybe permanently. Engineers are useful. Um, Logistics is useful in very low supply areas, like in Central America. If you're pushing beyond your supply hubs, or there's areas where there are gaps between, or certainly when pushing into the beginnings of South America. And
Logistic companies?
what?
Logistic companies?
Yeah, logistics companies. The ones that aren't very useful if you have weak industry are signal core and maintenance companies. Those just aren't. Those are very much based around like higher industry, like blitzkrieg kind of things. Uh,
Ah,
Maintenance companies, because tanks that can move really fast tend to have low reliability, and too low reliability can be crippling to a division. So as the organization regain and the stuff breaks down a ton, they're constantly under strength. They recover less after combat. And such stuff is also expensive, so worth recovering with better reliability. And Signal.
so would it be good to put my motorized recon company on my main divisions?
You don't have trucks. Trucks are a little beyond your industry right now. At your industry level, you're mostly using cavalry recon,
Uh,
and yeah, you're mostly using cavalry recon at your point. But they're still useful because they help you roll better tactics and move faster through terrain. So, and then they continue to get better later when you can get trucks and when you can get light armored
so should I choose
recon.
cavalry recon detachment?
Uh, I'd hold off and maybe just save the army experience to use a motorized when I can get you trucks after this war. I'm just
Mm. Yeah.
motorized
Uh,
are so cavalry recon are useful at your current like level of development, but if you think a little further into the future, motorized become more useful, or light armored recon. Armored cars can do recon, and they'll be a little bit better combat stats than motorized recon, if I remember. And I think they perform better with the actual recon task. They have higher base recon value, light armored than motorized. So armored car production would be ideal recon, but that's a whole line of tech that is a distraction for, well, your industry's so weak you could actually use armored cars kind of like light tanks, but not as good. Budget light tanks. Um, that won't cost army experience to go designing because you need your doctrines. I don't know. I have to think about it. Here I'm looking at my country though. I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna respond. What's the right first moves in the Civil War? I probably want to queue up a bunch of divisions. I'm just gonna. I think I just need to save now, and we'll pick this back up later because I can't think clearly, and I know I need to. I've been stockpiling guns partly so I could get stuff in training right away, and partly because the events where guns get stolen. And if I'm deficient on okay, I just lost a couple more steel, so I actually do that. If I'm deficient in guns, then I'll get Lend-Lease, like the French are sending me Lend-Lease, which makes sense. They're also kind of ideologically aligned since they are trying to go communist. Italy is actually sending me divisions, which The only thing better in guns is guns with people there to use the guns. Soviets are helping me. Who else is sending me a Lend-Lease? Japan sent me volunteers. Communist Japan. So, yeah. But yeah, I can't think clearly, so it's probably better to pick this up later. Just because I'm so tired.
Yeah.
I need to take a break before I do anything more, so, like, get some food in me and stuff. So, those on YouTube,
Yep.
I wish you all the best. Take care of each other. Be kind to yourselves. May always find guidance, start to lead you home.